Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. My name's FPL Phillips and welcome back to another episode of Eddie versus the Algorithm. And we're returning for the weekly series now in its full format with Eddie versus the Algorithm for game week 17. Thanks to those of you who are tuning back in, but if you're tuning in for the first time, this is the series where we take a look whether a man can outscore a machine in FPL, as I take on the computer-generated team each week with a free hit style team to see if I can outscore it for points in each individual week. And we've been doing pretty well so far this season. If you want to follow along, you can do on the playlist. And if you are one of those new people, then do feel free to, of course, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. But let's get into it, shall we? And kick things off, as we always do, by looking at the computer-generated team, this time for game week 17. And there's quite a significant points gap in the predicted points totals between myself and the algorithm this week. And the algorithm is always going to have the higher predicted points than myself. That's why it is the algorithm team that it is, because it's predicted by the computer to get the most points this week. And 68 points is what the algorithm is on for game week 17. And we're going to be kicking it off with a goalkeeping option that some of you might have seen if you tuned into the latest Eddie versus the algorithm video, which was a special edition wildcard / unlimited transfers that we've got right now video. And Jordan Pickford is the man who's come in there. He was in goal in that side, and he's in goal again for the free hit style team in game week 17. And now Everton, I don't think I would write them off in terms of a clean sheet against Wolves. Wolves have been very poor in front of goal so far this season, but I think there probably is better options for a clean sheet this week. But one thing that Everton and Wolves probably won't have is too many players missing, because their players have got further and later in the World Cup, which we are seeing with some of the sides who perhaps I would back more to get a clean sheet this week. Either way, not many people are playing. You can't play the free hit this week, really. It's pretty pointless. If you do, you can still physically activate the chip, but definitely wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't have Pickford in goal in one of those teams, but you never know. Could be a clean sheet this week for Everton against Wolves, and a nice home fixture in that one as well. But moving into the rest of the defence, we've got a double up from the Arsenal centre-back duo, and then Thiago Silva as well, the man who seems to keep getting into these algorithm teams somehow. Then for Reece James, who did play 60 minutes in Chelsea's latest fixture, so he could be back into the starting 11. One thing worth noting with the Chelsea defence is that Graham Potter set up with a back four in their latest fixture. So if Reece James is going to be deployed and get enough minutes in that side, it could be from a slightly deeper role than we would like to see him at. Of course, we're favouring when he's at that right wing back spot in a back 5/3. But the other two defenders, Gabriel and Saliba, both very nice options. It's not a bad fixture, that one, at the Emirates, home to the Hammers for Arsenal. And Gabriel and Saliba look like, two of the three best picks you can go for from the Arsenal defenders. There's really not much in it between those two and Ben White, the other option. I wouldn't risk going for any of the left-back picks. Gabriel would probably be my number one priority, but then I'd more rather go for Ben White over Saliba, I'd say. And Ben White is that bit cheaper than Gabriel, so I think a lot of people who are considering the Arsenal defender for a kind of fourth defender slot, then going for Ben White to save that little bit of extra cash over Gabriel could make a difference elsewhere when redistributing those funds, and I would probably just edge to go for Ben White if he wasn't going to be a starting defender for me all that often. But there is the possibility of that double game week for Arsenal in a few game weeks' time, which is definitely worth considering. We've then got the midfield coming in with Rashford, Mount, Antony, De Bruyne and Zaha. So a little bit of a few surprising shouts in there. Zaha looks like quite a nice punt for the first two game weeks. This game against Fulham is going to be a pretty decent fixture to have. They have been very good so far this season, Fulham, but from a defensive point of view, they haven't been all that great. You could back him to get something in that fixture for sure, and the next one before, maybe having him in your side and then making a transfer out for someone like a Saka or maybe a Foden. If we've seen that he's getting minutes in the league, then you could have the time to move across then, and that does give you 2 game weeks to assess something like Foden's game time before you look to jump on him for the double game weeks that the algorithm has got De Bruyne in for. Well, the algorithm's just considering this fixture at the moment, but De Bruyne is from that Man City side that will double in the future. Leeds away is not a bad fixture at all, and if anyone watched the Carabao Cup game, Liverpool against Manchester City, then you will just have seen how instrumental De Bruyne is for that Manchester City side, and just how involved he is in pretty much absolutely everything going forward. Some immense crosses, and he's going to be delivering more of that in the Premier League. He's done it time and time again. I don't need to tell you this, but interesting to see that the algorithm is picking De Bruyne over Salah for game week 17 at the very least. And then got Rashford and Antony, so a double up for Manchester United as they take on Nottingham Forest at Old Trafford. Rashford seems a very popular pick at the moment, but Antony's one who's a little bit more outside the box, 7.5 million for Brazilian. Didn't play too much in the World Cup. I imagine he'll come straight back into the first team for the first fixture back. So yeah, that looks like a nice option with Jadon Sancho, either out of favour / injured. Martial, Rashford, and then Antony will most likely be the front three. And then finally, Mason Mount. Bournemouth at home looking like a very nice fixtures. The underlying numbers, when I looked at them for Mason Mount, don't look all that encouraging, to be honest. But I think that Mason Mount is worth a little bit of a gamble if you do want to go for that. I think the mid-price midfielder position is the spot to maybe take that little bit of an extra risk by going for someone like Foden, who's not got guaranteed minutes, or Mount, who's not been in the best form but has some really nice fixtures and double game weeks that could breed some really good form. So I like the look of Mason Mount as well. Perhaps not the pick I'll be going for in my own personal side, but this week at the very least, he looks like a very nice option. And then finally, the front two, obviously we've got Erling Haaland. Not even going to touch on him, but the other striking option is Ivan Toney, going for him against Tottenham at home. And now when we're looking at 1 week in isolation, we don't need to worry yet about this betting thing he's got hanging over him and whether he's going to get suspended for that, being found guilty on however many counts of that. But he's got till like January the 4th or something to submit a statement, so he won't be getting suspended before then, we feel. Going up against Tottenham at home could pose an interesting fixture as well. He was in very good form going into the World Cup break, and Spurs will be without their goalkeeper, Hugo Lloris, and then also Romero, who both featured for their respective countries in the World Cup final. So a weakened Tottenham defence could be an opportunity for the Englishman to continue that form that he went into the World Cup break with. He's going to be fully rested, and hopefully he can grab a goal for the algorithm. That's what the computer will be hoping anyway in this game week. Finally then, on the bench, we've got Mikolenko, Mitchell and Edouard. Some very interesting options down there. Sanchez on the bench as well, a goalkeeper of note recently, as Brighton may be looking like they're going to be likely to have a double game week, maybe in game week 19 or a few game weeks after that. So worth keeping an eye on, because Ben Crellin said we will most likely be getting an announcement before game week 17 if it is the case that one of those games is going to move into game week 19. So that could affect our drafts. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that surrounding your Christmas festivities and whatnot. Do keep a wary eye out for any announcements regarding double game weeks. But that's wrapping up the algorithm teams, 68 predicted points for that. And I, in comparison, am on a measly 51 predicted points. And I am just going to reveal my entire team here. So here is my side. It's looking very similar, I'll be honest, to what I'm actually going to have as my proper draft. I've got Arrizabalaga, James, Mount in. Mount's the one few not actually in my proper team. Martial as well, another one I've gone with a little bit of a punt on. But I've gone with a double up on the Chelsea defence, not going for Thiago Silva, having any of that nonsense. I'm going for Reece James, taking a little bit of a gamble on him, and then Kepa as well. Cancelo, an interesting pick now that we've found out that Ruben Diaz is going to be out for most likely more than a month. Man City still have plenty of centre-back options, but it does arguably make Kyle Walker a little bit of a nicer pick, due to the fact that John Stones won't be moving out to the right-back role as much if needed, and he'll probably be covering a centre-back the majority of the time. But when they've got, Stones, Akanji, Laporte, they've got many centre-back options basically, so I don't think it makes too much of a difference to Walker's appeal in my book. We've then got Trippier and Almiron. I still think that Leicester fixture is good despite the form that Leicester were in going into the World Cup break. I think Newcastle have just been that strong this season. You have to back some of their players at those prices. I've stuck with Rashford but brought in Martial up front instead of going for Antony. Hopefully he doesn't break a leg or something during the first 10 minutes of this game, as is tradition for Martial to do. And I'm thinking many people who are going with Martial and taking a little bit of a risk will be hoping for the same. We've then got Mohamed Salah. I've gone with him over going for De Bruyne just due to the fact that I think that the Aston Villa side will be much weakened. They're going to be without their goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, for this first fixture back. And then I'm going for Darwin Núñez, who had a little bit of a rough time in front of goal in the Carabao Cup fixture, but it just showed how many chances this man does get. The Uruguayan might be a bit frustrating to own at times if he's dragging all these finishes wide, but he's going to put a fair amount of them in the back of the net. He's got to do it with the amount of chances that he is having. I'm not going to jinx it now, touch wood, all that stuff, but Darwin Núñez looks like an incredible option for the amount of XG he is getting. And then finally, Erling Haaland as my captain, absolutely obviously on the bench. Patterson, Andreas, and Bueno look like some very template bench picks, so I'm just going to go with them. The Wolves fixture at home does look quite nice for Everton, so Patterson will come in at the first sub opportunity. But yeah, that's my team. Let me know down below in the comments, whose team do you think is better, myself or the computers? Who do you think you are backing this week, Eddie or the algorithm? Let me know. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you're happy with the return of the series. Let us know if there's anything we can improve also down below in the comments. I'll get back and reply to each and every one. Thank you very much for tuning in once more. I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye, everyone.